Give you a closer look at the bottom and whatnot. See how much oil was on this thing. This thing is disgusting, man. This front mount wasn't even doing anything. This thing's literally broke. There's the mount right there. So as you can see, it was about time for this thing to come out anyway. Plus, I mean, who doesn't want more horsepower? Yeah, there it is. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it out, stick it in my truck, and then off to pick and pull it goes. What's going on, guys? Back here with the Civic again. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys stopping by the way. Getting a little love on the channel. I appreciate you guys for that. I'm back here with the Civic. As you can see in the last video, I got the D series pulled out of there and straight to pick and pull where it belongs. But now I'm just focused on trying to get the B series ready to drop into the car. There are a few things I want to go over before you guys stick it in there, just so you know what to do and what to look out for when you're putting a B series into an EF. So let's just get right into it. Okay, so pretty much all I'm doing now is just removing the wiring harness from this thing, because I need to keep this wiring harness. All I have to do is modify this harness, actually add wires to this harness in order to make the LS motor work, because as you know, this is a DPFI, which is a dual point fuel injection system, and I need to switch it to a MPFI or multi-point fuel injection, so it has 4 injectors instead of only the 2 that it has. So pretty much you'll be adding wiring for all the injectors. If you're using OBD0 injectors, you'll need to run a resistor box. If you have a DA Integra, this will work because obviously you already have a B series. If you have an SI hatch, you don't have to change any of the wiring. The wiring will literally plug straight up, and you can just go how you are. But this car just needs a few modifications in order to work correctly. So I'm pulling this wiring harness off so that I can retain it and save it. Okay, so as you can see, I got the B series here just sitting on the ground. You have to definitely modify a few things before you put this in here. Now again, this is going to be different if you guys are using different transmission or not. I'm using a hydraulic transmission, so this would have came out of the 94 through 2001 Integra. You can see it has a slave cylinder over here. This guy usually goes bolted right here, and it gets attached to a clutch line. You can see like that, a hydraulic line. But since I am putting this transmission, as I mentioned earlier, into a car that has a cable clutch, you need to use a cable to hydro conversion, meaning that you can retain your clutch cable, but you just have to attach some brackets to be able to use that cable on this type of transmission. So this one came with a kit I bought that I showed you guys in the last video. I got the transmission mount. This one goes right here on top, just like that. And then I actually already got the rear mount already in place back there. On this cable thing, it doesn't really come with instructions, I've noticed, to put them on. So it comes with this bracket right here. It goes right here. This is how I have it mounted on. It can only go one direction because there's a notch cut out here for the webbing on the transmission. But yeah, that just bolts into place just like that. Then you'll go on ahead and pull off the slave cylinder, that guy. Pull that thing off like I did. It's just held on by 2 12mm bolts. And then what you do is you take and you put the new slave cylinder into place. It has one bolt over here like this, so you actually need to unbolt this bottom bolt down here, which is a 17. You'll unbolt that guy, and then this thing will kind of bolt into place like this. It'll bolt right there on that one, and then you can see the two 12s mount up right there. Now, in order to do that, you got to probably gonna have to remove this here boot for now. You can put the boot on later. Actually, I'll just pull it off now. It just pulls off. You can see this is a clutch fork. So you bolt that guy on just like this, and then you can see the cable actually will come down into this hole right here, and it'll grab the bottom of this guy right here, and then this is pretty much your new slave cylinder that as you push the clutch in, it'll pull the cable up, and this will pull this up, and this little ball here will push on this clutch fork, and that's how you get your clutch operation. So this thing is adjustable, and it will need some adjusting, but you'll just have to figure that out as you get to the car and you get it going. So I just wanted to let you guys know that's how you put this thing on, because there aren't any instructions, and I tried to look online for some and there aren't any. So this will work for any hydraulic B series transmission going into a DA or an EF. It doesn't matter what it is, but you do need this and this guy. And like I said, it reuses all the factory hardware, so you don't have to go find anything new. Secondly, you are going to have to use a DA Integra rear T-bracket, as I mentioned earlier before. The only thing different with these is you need to enlarge these bolt holes, because this actually sits on the back of the transmission like this, and the bolts that come with the DC Integra are rather large. They're a little bit larger than the DA bolts, so you'll have to enlarge this. All I used was a 1/2-inch drill bit and kind of just reamed it out a little bit, and you can see the bolt goes in there just fine now. It goes in just fine on both holes. You have to do the same on both holes. Yeah, I can't say that fast. Secondly, you can tell when you're looking at this, the top bolt hole over here, it's wide, like it has a wider thickness here. So one of the factory bolts will work just fine. It'll go into the transmission and it'll work just fine. However, the bottom bolt down here, since when you would have pulled your motor, hopefully you would have got both the T-bracket bolts, which is both these. One of these will work just fine because it's thick up there, but as you can see, it's really thin down here. So one of these bolts is not going to work. So you're probably just going to have to go to the parts store or some kind of hardware store and match up a bolt that is much shorter than this bolt, which I'm going to have to go do. I'll do that, off camera. Go to Ace or wherever you can get Fastenal, somewhere you can get bolts. But like I said, you have to enlarge the holes slightly to fit this bolt. A lot of people say use a 9/16 drill bit. Honestly, I just used a 1/2-inch, and I kind of reamed it for, I don't know, maybe 15 seconds or so, and it worked just fine. You don't want to go too big because you don't want the mount to be, rattling around on the bolt. You want the bolt to fit in there snugly, so don't go too far with it. So yeah, you'll have to enlarge that, and you'll have to get a shorter bolt, and that'll be it for that. When you do go to put this engine in, you want to make sure you put this bracket in the car first. So take the bracket and then sit it back here like where it belongs. Make sure it's sitting back there, and you just put the bolts in there but leave it loose, so that way this thing can move up and down. If you try to put the bracket onto the motor and then put the motor in here, you will definitely have a problem. Now, this is probably the suckiest part about putting a B series into the EF, is trying to fit that bracket in the bag. It is such a pain, but I promise you it's easier to do it this way than to leave it attached to the motor. So, and the last thing you have to deal with is the speed sensor, in case you do want to see how fast you're going. The hydraulic transmissions use an electronic speed sensor, which is this guy right here. You can see I have taken apart. This is the top of it. The plug has a plug on it, and this one sits just back here on the transmission. One 10mm bolt that holds it on, and just pulled it out. And then I actually split this from here, which is just held on by two 10s, just two 10mm bolts that hold the top on. I was over here just messing around, but in case anyone wants to know, I'm not sure on every year, but I know for sure that most of these cable-driven speed cables here, as you can see, this is the factory one from this car, the one I need to use. Most of these will fit directly into B series transmissions. Like I can take it and literally put it straight in there and there won't be any issues at all. You can see it went straight in there, no problem. So the only difference between these two is if you look at them close to each other is that the B series gear is obviously thicker, so it reaches a little bit farther down into the transmission. What I'm first going to try is to just run this just how it is. I didn't change it at all. I'm going to run this in the transmission first and see if this gear is actually long enough to hit the pickup on the diff in there. And if it is, then cool, I can just leave it just like that. The only issue that you'll run into when you're doing that is you'll need to make up. Now I'm dumb and I lost the, I don't know what I did with the, excuse me, hold on a second. I don't know what I did with the retaining pin that I had. There on the D series transmission, there's like a little tab that comes off of here to come out here and stop this thing from popping out. So I'll just have to make something to make that work. That's pretty easy. Just get a piece of flat metal, drill a hole on one side, and just cut it to length over here to work. So that's not a problem. But I'm gonna run this cable speedo just like this, and see, hopefully it's long enough and it grabs the gear down there in the bottom. If it doesn't work that way, then unfortunately what you're going to have to do is kind of play around with this and put some together. Now what you can do is, you see on these things they have like a little cotter pin on the side. You pull the pin out, that allows you to pull this shaft out here. Same for this one. Pull the pin out and you can take this shaft and put it into this housing right here, and vice versa. They both work into each other one. So I can take the D series one, put it in here. I can put the speedo cable in here. That way I'll have a nice mount. However, the speedo cable in here is very sloppy, so I'm not too sure yet what I'm gonna work out. I'll let you guys know that when I get that far, but honestly that'd probably be one of the last things I do, because I can do that when the engine's in the car, so no big deal there. But aside from that, I did forget to mention on the last video that you will need a DA Integra throttle cable. So this came from a DA, a 90 through 93 Integra. You will need this because your D series one will be way too long. So I'm gonna go on ahead and have to definitely pull this. As you can see how long this throttle cable is, it's huge. This will be way too long, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and pull that out. Got the transmission mount. I got the post mount here on the side, hanging here. It's there, ready to go on. I just have to also go to the parts store and get a much shorter bolt to fit into this side. But aside from that, everything is good. Got the power steering pump on here. I'll probably take it off as I'm putting it into the car. And then another thing, the last thing you're gonna have to do, now this varies for a lot of different people also, is the alternator. Some people say they've used D series alternators on these, and you can, if you modify the top bracket, you can get away with doing that, or you can just get away with, some people just tighten the bottom bolt and just run the bottom bolt and not the top at all, and that way they can fit the engine into the chassis. Because the problem you have is the B series alternator is big, and you'll either have to run a very short belt. I think you can run like a 300 millimeter belt as far as length. You can run that. It'll be extremely tight still, but you can run it and it'll be fine. However, if you run the stock or factory belt, what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to get yourself a giant hammer, and you're gonna have to hit this frame rail right here, just underneath this. I know you can't see it, but there's a hole right here under the shock tower. You need to dent this right here, this area. I mean, I'm serious. Just take a hammer and hit it in about, I don't know, 3/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch. You need to hit it in there. Otherwise, your alternator pulley is going to rub on that, and it won't be fun. It'll be making sparks and whatnot. Some people stick it in, just let it clearance itself. I mean, I guess that's one way to do it. Most people just beat it in and it's fine. Or if you use a short belt, that'll work too, but you'll still be struggling to get the belt on. I don't know which way I'm going to go about doing it yet. We'll see. But yeah, so that's pretty much all you got to do to kind of get the B series ready to get in there. I don't think there's anything else I should mention. Oh, one more thing is the header. Now, I got this from Pick and Pull, and they always cut off the catalytic converter, so the bottom part of my header, or the the two-piece header, it was all cut up, so couldn't use it. So I am going to have to find a stock exhaust manifold, or maybe if there's a cheap aftermarket one, I'll go that route. But I'm trying to keep this thing on a budget, just because I know how crazy B series have become, and I know that you can do them a lot cheaper. So but anyway, back to the header here. You're going to have to use a 4-2-1 header, which is pretty much a two-piece header, or it comes with four pipes that you see coming out, down to 2 and then down to 1 underneath. You can run a 4-to-1 header, which is just 4 that come into one collector down here on the bottom, but those things are really hard to get on and off, and you most likely are going to have to beat the crap out of your front mount frame here, because this will be in the way. So if you use a 4-2-1 header, it tucks a lot closer to the motor, and it gives you a lot more space, so that you won't have to be dealing with this mount that's in the way. If you run a 4-to-1 header, I promise you, you will either have to cut this off or beat the life out of all this just to get it in there, and that's not going to be fun. That's pretty much all there is you need to know to get this motor in here. Sorry, I know this video is mostly going to be a lot of talking and whatnot, but it makes it easier if you know ahead of time before trying to get it in there and struggle and then have to pull it in and out 4 or 5 times just to figure out what the heck's going on. So yeah, in the next video I'll definitely be dropping this motor in and getting it situated in there, so that I can go on ahead and run down the wiring and tell you guys what you need to do with that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I can say right now. So I appreciate you guys stopping by, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button on the way out. I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace.